Cemetery Park of the original Camden. But my feeling was, again, that the Presbyterian Church was torn apart by the British and then later burned, even though it was a barracks. My take on it is that it was still destroyed in the demolition of it by the British. Thus, we did include it. Now, the Quaker Church, which probably was burned in Camden, Quakers are very quiet, very private group of people, just never could find anything in print and in record to say that the Quaker Church was burned. But it probably was burned. This is another view of where the graveyard is. The church would be in this view over to the right. It was a wood frame building, very easily taken apart. I do want to leave you with the thought as we look at St. Andrew's Church, St. Andrew's Parish Church, which is the oldest church in South Carolina. It was built in 1706. This is the original St. Andrew's Parish Church. In 1721, the chancel area was added and the nave area was added, forming the Latin cross cruciform type construction. So again, as much as we try to disassociate religion and government, I would encourage you to remember the cross of this church and the important part that religion did play in the American Revolution and the freedom that we enjoy today. Any questions? Yeah.
Fishing Creek.
Fishing Creek was burned also.
Do you have anything on that?
It's in the book. This is just a teaser. Yes, ma'am.
You showed a church that had two different entry doors, one for men and one for women. Were they allowed to sit together and one sit
Yes,
outside?
yeah. I never have quite understood why they went in separate doors, but invariably they would all get back together as a family unit. Presbyterians and Baptists particularly had two doors. They were not as strong about renting pews as the Presbyterians and the Anglicans were, or Presbyterians and Episcopal were. They rented pews, Presbyterian particularly, with the doors and all. But the Baptists and even some of the Methodists. And the reason we haven't talked about Methodists is that they were not even formed. The Methodist Church wasn't formed here until 1784. So there were obviously no Methodist churches burned just because it wasn't a religion here at this time. But yes, they did get back together as a family unit, but they would typically go in separate doors.
They have to go out separate doors?
I would assume. Yes, ma'am.
So have you ever found any primary source documenting that isn't just a legend thing? I've never seen it documented.
I've seen it written in church histories. How authentic it is, I think it's fairly general knowledge. I think it's more than legend.
Well, I grew up in New England. All the congregational churches are like that, and I never heard that the men and the women
went in different doors.
never.
Yeah. That's fairly common for us here to know. Could be different there, yes.
Yeah, the Catholic Presbyterian Church in Chester County, you can see where the wall went down the middle of the nave, separating the men and the women, and the shadows where the wall was are still there.
Still there.
It's still separated.
Yeah. It's there was a lot of separation, men and women, and so I'm not overly surprised at the two doors. Yes, sir.
Were there any instances of patriots burning loyalist churches in areas where there was heavy loyalist folks living?
Ask me that one more time, please.
Are there any instances of patriots burning loyalist churches
We didn't find any record of that. Now, there was obviously some colonists, like Andrew DeVoe, but he was a loyalist. He was one of, we'll say us, but he supported the Crown.
I understand that.
But I don't know of any case that a colonist burned an Anglican church out of anger for England. Most everything was burned, or everything that I know of was burned as retaliation to the colonists and not by the colonists. Yes, sir.
Were you the photographer? Or
Yes.
You were?
Yeah.
Well, you'd have a wonderful eye for composition. I just wanted to compliment you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate
Excellent-
that.
Excellent photography.
We do have books here tonight. I'll be here all day tomorrow. If any of you are not going to be here tomorrow, we'll be glad to sell you some books today. But yeah, I did the photography and did a lot of the writing. Jim Neal, who I got to know, this was his idea, was the book. Unfortunately, he got real sick during most of the book, and I, along with Charles's help, had to finish up the writing of it. But it was Jim's baby, and he wanted me to do the photography, and that's really all I started to do. But we had to do more. Yeah.
Bill, why don't you tell them how many you have done so far?
Well, in these 13 years, well, I started out trying to find 185 pre-Civil War churches. That was in 2003. Right now, I've visited, photographed, and researched just short of 800 churches in South Carolina. So when Jim asked me about this, I had all the churches already. I had to go back and get a few more pictures and right time of the day. Had to go find some of like Reverend Martin's grave. Jim wanted to put that in, so I had to go trumping through the woods to find that. But it's just a passion of finding old churches. As a builder, that's what I'm looking for, is the building aspect of a church.
But his photographs have also been on display in museums, and they are all of that excellent composition and quality.
But when did they put that in? But yeah, we I think it's over 100 photographs in the book, and so we'll be glad to share that with anyone.
Did that lady invite you to her wedding?
No, she didn't. But I did get her name. Yes, ma'am.
Since the Anglican churches were technically owned by the Crown, any indication in your research when you had ministers that were kind of thrown out of their churches and went home to England, any indication of what happened to the records of those churches?
I think they all stayed, if I'm understanding, we didn't lose any parishes. Now, we obviously, rectors, like Charles Woodmason, I think he ended up going back to England, did he, or did he stay?
No, he went back.
He went back?
Yeah, he became the tax stamp collector, and he decided that the better part of valor was to return to England.
Okay. Now, I don't know that I'm answering your question yet.
The question is there, did you find any indication that the records, not the record, but the records of the churches that were destroyed may have been removed to England or to some other spot? Or
I did not. No, I didn't find any indication that the records, the documentation was sent back to England. Yes.
I just couldn't hear what he did.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was saying Woodmason.
No, I was actually.
Went back to England.
He did go back.
Yeah. Which, yeah, I was kind of surprised at that too. I thought he would have stayed, since he was somewhat loyal to the colonists.
Yeah.
Because he did not live up to the Crown's expectations. And I think it's interesting, again, the SPG and the part that that played, whether it was very subtle or whether it was intentional on behalf of the